The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. And away we grow. Welcome one and all to the show. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast, the show for all you plant lovers out there. My name's Kevin Jordan, also a plant lover, and I will be your host today, back in studio for another great episode. We really are going to touch on some pretty cool topics this week. We have a really interesting guest, and I'm going to share that with you in a bit. But before we do, let's say hello to Austin on the mic. How's it going there, Austin?
Hello, Kevin, and thank you for the warm intro. And welcome back to all of our guests. Welcome back to the show. It's the best time of the week.
I love it.
Let's get after it. And you know what? Before we get to we have a great guest this week.
We do.
And lots to share. But Kevin, I want to get straight to business. What should our listeners be thinking about in the garden this week? What's going on out there?
There's so much ramping up right now. I know the weather is kind of cold, kind of wet a little bit, a little here, there, but things are going to warm up before too long. We're in the planning phases of hopefully of a wonderful spring, summer season, but I'm still growing right now. So the garden at the school is packed. Citrus is flowing. We've been dehydrating these blood oranges. They are delicious, cool. Austin. So things are still going. The broccoli, the cauliflower, the cabbage, garlic is thriving right now. But I know a lot of our listeners are like, I'm really looking forward to that spring season. So There's a lot of preparation. So there's so many things you can do in the garden right now. I know it doesn't seem like it because it's February. But of course, prune. If you have not gotten to your fruit trees, and I got to say, Austin, I've been driving around my neighborhood.
What do you see?
I'm seeing a lot of stone fruit trees, peaches, nectarines, plums, and whatnot. And they are in dire need of some pruning. So people are putting it off, and that's fine, but we're getting closer and closer to the edge. A well-pruned fruit tree is so valuable. It's worth the effort. So prune. If you're going to do that, whether it's your roses or your fruit trees, because it's also time to prune those roses back, sharp, clean, sanitized blades. So whether it's a bypass pruner or your loppers or even a serrated saw, make sure that they're sharp, they're very clean, and of course, sanitized. Do your best to, if you have a nice, clean, but sharp blade, it helps with just making easier cuts, which makes for an easier time, but you want a wound that's not torn and shredded, and you don't want to introduce any of those diseases in there. And so that's where right now there's a lot of moisture, so that all those fungal spores are flying around. So a clean and sanitized blade
sounds
is
good.
Worth its weight.
Okay, now let me ask you a question there. So if maybe I have roses and a fruit tree, should I sanitize between them?
Absolutely. Is that even between roses or between fruit trees?
Even between plants?
Yes. We've seen the pros. They bust their cans out, their Lysol, whatever mix you decide to use. Just keep it on hand, because if you're going from one tree to another, you don't want to introduce disease from one to another. I know it seems like a lot, but we're out there in the garden. It's nice to do best practices, because when you have a healthy fruit tree, it's pretty nice. And if you have a sick one, nobody wants that.
No.
For sure. But right now, too, honestly, I know this might be weird, but this is
I like weird.
This is weird. This is a great time to be planting. So when the soil starts to dry out just a little bit and it becomes workable, and you can get out in that garden a little bit. And I'm not just talking about your veggies. I'm actually focused more on your ornamentals, your shrubs, your trees, your perennials, and whatnot. Right now is just the phenomenal time. I know a few months back we talked about how fall is for planting. It's the best time to plant, especially if you're going to do a large-scale landscape, and you really want those plants to get established and survive. So now we've moved on. The next best time is right now. Late winter, early spring. It gives those plants just enough time to get in the ground, get rooted and established, and allow themselves to hopefully thrive and prosper as things warm up and get really ripping, roaring later in the spring and into summer. Mm-hmm. So right now is actually a great time if you're looking at perennial shrubs. I was actually, I'm really excited. You know what my favorite things to sniff is, Austin?
Oh,
actually,
gosh.
Wait, don't answer that. Don't answer that. Daphne. Daphne odera. It's a beautiful shrub that is actually doesn't really like too much water. It's pretty drought tolerant once it's established. You can get some that have variegated leaves, but just a little pink and white blossom smells like the best perfume.
Okay.
Like I want to fall in love with Daphne.
Okay.
Right. I just love it. And so they're coming into bloom soon. So it's pretty cool to kind of go down to your nurseries, go for a walkabout and see what's blooming, because there's a lot of cool plants that start blooming kind of midwinter. And you really, it's so cool to see them. But that really gets me fired up on other things like camellias that we've discussed in the past. They're ripping right now. So, but those camellias, Daphne, and beyond, there's so much to look at and to plant right now. So if you're one of those people like, I'm doing a hardcore garden this year and I'm going to re-landscape the front yard and rip the lawn out, this is that time you want to start considering it. Because if you wait till midsummer, that's not going to be a fun job.
Sure.
Right? And it might be a little less successful as far as the plants surviving. So
get it going now.
Right now is a great time to do all that. It's so perfect, whether the weather, but even also the selection. Sometimes when you wait till the end of the summer, the selection starts to kind of change a little bit.
Sure.
But right now we're ramping up pretty soon in some pretty wild times.
I got a question though, because I am very focused on my veggies this year, and
I'm glad for that.
I'm curious what you think about. Is time come and gone for starting seeds? Like I already started, but
bless your heart.
Maybe not everyone has. Like I don't know. Like what's the timing like?
I'm so glad you brought it up. I'm still planting seeds.
Okay.
So wherever you live, find a seed calendar that suits your climate zone. Here at 9B, I've got mine. I go to the UC Master Gardeners or to Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Great planting calendars. It'll show you when to start from seed in a container or indoors, when to plant seed directly, or when to transplant a seedling. Tells you exactly when you can do it, that window. And right now we're in a window. You could plant a lot of things, which is kind of funny.
Could you do tomato?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's not too late. I actually like having. We've learned from some of the pros, Brad Gates, and that it's kind of fun to maybe put a few tomatoes in to be the first one on your block to get those early girls or whatever, those first early producing tomatoes ripe.
And then successive.
Yes, and then plant some a month or two later, and then another one in different waves. That way, as those tomatoes kind of mature and maybe aren't towards the end of their cycle, they're not really producing quite as much, then you have other ones coming on that are really young and healthy and vigorous. So that's kind of fun. I love that idea. And the last thing that I'm going to share with, and this is really going to help people out, if you had a lot of bug pressure last year in your garden, especially towards the end of summer or whatnot, this is a great time to actually spray for bugs, even if you don't have them. Now, you're going to be very deliberate. A nice horticultural oil, like a dormant spray, and so you can actually mix it with some of your sprays. But I love a horticultural oil this time of year because you can spray it on your garden areas, even if your plants aren't there yet. So on the sides of your garden beds, even on your fence posts and things like that, anywhere that's near where you grow, because there's going to be eggs of these little creepy crawlies that are hiding in some of these locations. And if you're worried about that, you can spray for those and kind of have some targeted sprayings.
Nice.
So that's one thing that you could do this time of year as well.
Cool. All right. Well, that's actually quite a bit there to think about.
Busy.
I like that. There's a lot going on, and really it just feels like we're on the precipice of a great big season ahead.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Certainly.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. Let's go ahead and transition now to our guest. We had an amazing guest on this week. Our guest is Katie Norton, and we met her from our previous guest, Thaddeus Barsotti.
Yes, in good company.
Yeah, he's from Farm Fresh to You, and Katie works there as well. But she's also just got so many other cool things going on.
Oh, yeah.
And just a big inspirational person to talk to because she's got she's got the love, the passion for this stuff.
You can tell third generation descends from some farmers. It's pretty cool, and she's trying to get back into it herself as a third generation farmer. And we're going to talk about sunflowers, elderberries, which is pretty cool. We're going to talk quite a bit about elderberries, which she has a strong passion for. I've never grown them myself, so I was like, oh, this is so cool. I had to do some more research. And it's pretty awesome. It's a California native that we're going to get into, so there's a lot to touch on. I loved it.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our interview with Katie Norton and learn all about it. We sat down with her at the Green Acres Nursery and Supply in Roseville. Let's go ahead and check it out. Here we go. So I'm here with Katie Norton. Katie, how's it going?
Going great.
Well, it's great to have you. Please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Katie Norton. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I have a soon-to-be elderberry farm in the works. I also love to cook at home, and really edible flowers is a passion of mine right now, and learning how to grow that in my garden and learn different varieties. Really just taking the time to slow down and just enjoy life out in nature with my child and giving her an opportunity to get in touch with nature the way I was raised. I come from Yuba City, and that's where I'm half East Indian, half Irish, and a big Punjabi population out in Yuba City. And we're the farmers of India. So really, Punjab is where most of our farmers are going to be found out in India. And my grandfather led a big pilgrimage of East Indian men to Northern California and got really them into farming. And I am third generation farmer, but I haven't quite launched that full effect until today. So we're starting that journey, and it's a really fun opportunity to share with my community on where we're growing and going, especially when it comes to a new way to farm and grow as a gardener.
I heard a little bit, I was warned, that you have a little bit of a growing passion for elderberries. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
It's such a cool plant.
Well, it's definitely a cool plant. I didn't realize the value from it until I sat in on one of a talk I got, and we were talking about holistically how to heal and love your body. And really, elderberries, what just stuck out to me was could cut your illness in half. If I could cut how long I'm sick in half, that seems a lot more manageable in my day, and what a resource. And then
It's nice to have hope.
Oh my goodness.
When you're not feeling well.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll try anything.
Oh my gosh, yes. When pain hits, we'll
or
do
to
the
keep
work.
yourself well, Just
Yeah.
For sure.
Here for the maintenance plan, especially as a parent too, when it came to COVID, and I think you can relate, we had our kids relatively at the same time.
Yeah.
Elderberry, couldn't get it on the shelf when COVID happened. It was really hard.
Really?
It was a crisis in the sense of where elderberry hails from Europe. So majority of almost over 89%, I want to say, of elderberry consumption in the nation comes from Europe, and very little comes from the USA. So
Let's get Thaddeus on that.
I know, I'm working on it. And if anything, baby steps. And that's the project where I'm looking at. So being a California native plant.
Yeah.
It is.
The blue elderberry.
Yes. And that one's going to be the Sambucus sorella. And that one's the blue elderberry, which is the same qualities of a black elderberry, which is definitely, there's two American varietals. We got the Canadensis, and that one's more of
That's the East Coaster.
Yeah, we're here for them,
Yeah.
That's a traditional one. And for California, we want to keep it in California with the native
We love
elderberry.
native plants around here.
It's big time.
For sure.
And it's kind of not only just a health benefit, but what we can do for our pollinators and then also the ecosystem.
Well, there is, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a specific beetle
Yes.
that requires the blue elderberry for its habitat and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think it's, the elderberry longhorn beetle?
That is it. Yep.
Isn't that cool? So what's up with that?
So there's a law around him, so he's very special. If anything, he's on the endangered list. So in certain counties, how you grow your elderberry, you're not allowed to prune only in certain months due to when they're laying their eggs. So in order to prune your elderberries, if you're growing on a commercial level, so if you're a farmer with a hedgerow, they're giving you a certain window to really kind of cut back.
Yeah.
But you have to really let it do its thing. And then the most important part is it's really just the Yolo County, the Central Valley, all the way to Fresno, then the Sierra foothills. So there's certain months that you're allowed to.
That's where it's most protected.
Yes, exactly. If you're in the coast, like where I'll be farming, you get to just do what you gotta go for it. They're not there, so they like to keep it more inland.
So why are they so helpful and delicious, or are they delicious?
They
do
are.
you eat them, or do you only use the
Do
finished
not eat
product?
them straight off the bush. They are also a little toxic, so
Oh, there we
you
go.
will have a decent amount of stomach pains that will follow. It definitely needs to be cooked down.
There we
And-
go. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and most of it is dried, and we get it from Europe. What the beautiful part is, and who I'm hoping to work with, her name's Katie Norton. She's out in Carmel, and she has this wonderful product called Elderberry, and she is a woman-owned business, and I hope to get her on here with us. So that's the dream. But Katie is basically the last 8 years, she made this business, and it's elderberries, and they cold press it. So it keeps a lot of the integrity of the antioxidants, the health benefits in it.
Doesn't just cook the life out of it.
Exactly. There's no drying it. They just flash freeze right when harvest, and then cold press. And they take it in 2 different forms, in syrup and gummies, is the health benefit way that she gets it out to the community.
What are people hoping that it does?
So it's really just getting your immune system up. If you don't want to get sick, take it daily. I give it to my daughter when she goes to daycare because I just don't want to see her come back with
Need
another.
your shields up.
Please.
Shields at maximum.
Sincerely. Yeah, that's where we're at. She's taking it every day. She calls it her morning candy.
Okay.
And it tastes great.
Okay.
Yeah, when you taste it, it's so fresh. It's actually the blue elderberry is sweeter than any other of the varietals.
California love. There we go.
Yeah.
And I feel like it must be a little bit more adapted to our climate here.
Yes.
I feel like our natives tend to be that, have a lot of similarities in that regard.
Big time. It's super drought resistant. So when it comes to farming, it's kind of super simple.
Once you get it going, it's
Yeah, it just takes off. Like how you would find your elderberry today would traditionally, and what a lot of indigenous people are trying to get this back into our ecosystem is because it was all along our riverbanks. It's a very, very vital part of like not only embracing, restoring our cultural and food sovereignty for the indigenous people and for our ecosystem, but it's really just building our pollinators back up, which helps out tremendously. It is doing its part for the ecosystem, not only for bringing in pollinators naturally, but what it does for a health benefit, it just goes both ways, that to the point where actually colleges will give you grants to grow it. So if you want to start up and just become an elderberry farmer, or even just plant a hedgerow, you can get paid to do so. So you just send in an application, which I'll be sending in some references to go to.
nice.
That's
Yeah, they're
what
a
I'll be
beautiful riparian plant. You know,
Yeah.
stabilizing the topsoil and whatnot, providing habitat for all these wonderful organisms.
Exactly. Giving love to the little birds. We need every animal and every bug has its place on the farm and in the garden. We just got to work within our means of nature. I really feel like when you do utilize your land, it doesn't have to be much, and you can make it fun. Just go where your heart leads you. And for me, it's the elderberry right now, just because I think of, and what I've heard from other mothers that started making their own product or started doing this business with elderberries, is that their child was going through an ailment. They were sick. They were losing their mind because of
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, it's just like
Get
finding
sick and then your
another
mom
way.
creates an invention.
Yeah, your mother will go above and beyond for you. It's that mama bear energy. That's what I enjoy the most, is that it pulled from me, hey, if babies can't have honey, if they can't, when they're sick, and elderberry is now in the medical profession, now being promoted, that's actually what we can give your child. There's almost like a demand and a niche for it. And it's such an underutilized market that really it can be highly financially beneficial to go into. And it's only skyrocketed ever since COVID. So that for me, not only for a financial side, but also the joy of healing other littles and getting mothers who are also facing that same fear another resource. That's what I'm doing it for.
That's pretty cool. What are some of the lessons that you've learned from like your garden, like either mistakes made or successes had? Like, what has been your best lesson that you've learned while being in the garden?
I think to laugh at myself. I think to really kind of like not take myself so seriously when it doesn't map out accordingly, to be okay with surprise.
When your lettuce bolts a little early.
Yeah. The joy of going to your garden, right? And seeing what's coming up. I think the biggest lesson is like my garden will teach me how to let go on a daily basis. Like nothing will show you life lessons than your own garden.
Oh yeah.
And with a toddler, there was last year, she was uprooting every plant I grew. And I was losing my mind. I'm like, will I ever grow anything? But I wanted her to have that
Talk about
connection.
pest damage. It's like, come on.
There's no toddler control to spray out there.
Yeah.
She's going to pick it if she sees it. But I think that's the part where I think I just want her to have that immersion, that like surrounding of being in nature. It's so healing for both me getting outside with my coffee and seeing her play. So I'm starting to learn a little bit more on hyperaccumulators, I believe that's what they're called. So we're going to plant sunflowers.
So Katie, when you say hyperaccumulators, what are you talking about?
So there's these beautiful plants that will naturally pull out heavy metals, different kind of harder elements that will enrich our soil. So like when Chernobyl happened, they just spread a ton of sunflowers and it's starting to pull the toxins. Oh gosh.
I think something similar was done at Fukushima as well.
Yes.
Because of all the salt.
There we go. Yeah. It's the journey of figuring out what plants are we going to utilize this year. So for myself, before putting in my elderberries, I'm getting my soil tested. I'm going to see how to start from there. And then I'm going to look into putting in sunflowers as my first or my second cover crop going in, and do a little sunflower side hustle to get that going. And honestly, that's my dream. That's my favorite flower.
They're beautiful. Oh yeah, for sure. We grow them at the school sometimes, and we've had the mammoths and the Mongolian giants, and they just tower over the students, and some of these blossoms, 2 feet across. They're fun.
Too much fun.
For sure.
I
Picture
think
perfect.
Especially with kids too and toddlers, my whole dream is to raise my daughter in a garden. That was the best part of my childhood.
Just a greenhouse, just a little greenhouse out there. You'd be like, hey, you're going to live in the greenhouse in the garden.
That'd be too. Her grandma's hot house is very much her play spot.
Yeah.
It's a really healing place in time between grandma, myself, and my daughter. We're just kind of, this is our journey together and taking over the property.
How do you think we get more young people into the garden?
The beautiful part is we can think of the laundry list of things that we have to do in a day. Why not give yourself something that you feel called to grow? Whatever it calls to you, whatever it sparks joy. Like think back maybe when you were a kid and your first experience of being in a garden and what you grew or you interacted with. For me, it was sunflowers. That was the first thing I grew. So I'm actually not mad where we're facing right now. And it's really cool because for me, I felt that pull to elderberry just due to like wanting to love on my daughter.
Well, Katie, you're talking about so many great things. What is your hope for like maybe the future of how we interact with food, our relationship with food, both maybe as individuals and just as a region, as people?
I think the real call to action is how are we going to bridge that gap in our community to share our resources between the gardener that has too much citrus coming through in their tree and they don't know what to do with it and they need someone to pick it. I want them to know where to go, to have people that actually there's programs out there. They'll pick up your fruit and do that work for you and give it to a family or a place that can actually utilize it. I want to build that connection and communication gap to the point where people know where their food's coming from. They can sell what they're making and creating. They can keep it as local and dense as possible, and it doesn't always have to be a farmer's market that you have to reach there. I think that is on the forefront of where we need to be. I think really it's nice to have your own homestead and support your family, but we have so much we can give each other. And we can fill in those gaps if we allow other people in. And I hope people to learn where they want to grow and go with me on this journey. And I hope to keep coming back because we're all in it together. it's the journey. I'm not too worried about the end game.
Well, Katie, I got to thank you so much for making time for us. I know you are a busy person with so many different responsibilities, but mom, farmer, gardener, elderberry grower extraordinaire, I got to thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If anyone's interested in seeing the journey of becoming an elderberry farmer and more resources, I have an Instagram. It's elderberry_CA, and it's really showcasing the blue elderberry.
And we are back from our interview with Katie Norton. Big thank you to Katie and Kevin. Let's debrief this. I love debriefing things.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this, but I would like to talk about elderberries because I don't think we've ever talked about this.
No.
The sambucus and all of the amazing benefits of its medicinal purposes, right?
Loved
And
it.
I was wondering if, what your experience with it is.
So very cool, and I loved that the variety she was talking about growing is a California native. It's being used for habitat restoration. I love that it had the connection with the valley elderberry longhorn beetle, which is a threatened species, and we're using those two species together and kind of in combination. Pretty cool stuff. I don't think I've ever had an elderberry product. Have you?
I don't know. I don't think so.
And now I'm a little more motivated to try. So I did a little research. I went down a rabbit hole. I went down to elderberry hole.
Oh,
so do you know where the name came from?
Elder?
So it actually the root is Ellen, I think Anglo-Saxon, and it means fire kindler.
Whoa.
Very cool.
That's medieval.
Yes, right? So what's kind of interesting is that it's super medicinal in that the flowers, the berries, the leaves, pretty much all parts of the plant have some medicinal use or quality.
Wow.
But be careful because some of it can be toxic when it's
Sure.
not cooked. So what's cool is that so much of the plant is medicinal, but the fruits themselves, raw, actually contain a little bit of cyanide in them.
Whoa,
so they can make you
that's
nauseous or
not
sick.
good.
So it's very important that it be processed and
Sure.
cooked. But when you
Be
cook,
careful.
when it's cooked, apparently it breaks all that down, and then you can get after all those medicinal qualities. I actually even looked up the National Institute for Health has been doing some research with elderberries and their use for many things, but the one that I saw report on, and it was for the cold and flu and how it affects people. So check this out, and I will quote them. This is from their research. Elderberry may not reduce the risk of developing the common cold. It may reduce the duration and severity of colds, but the evidence is uncertain. Elderberry may reduce the duration of influenza, but the evidence is uncertain. So it sounds like that it can reduce the severity, like how long you're sick and how bad it is for the cold and the flu. Pretty cool.
So they're saying that is true, that's
Based
backed up
on
by
their
research.
studies, yeah. But of course, more studies are needed.
Got it.
But pretty interesting. And so it sounds like people have been using this for a long time, pretty safely as well. But of course, consult your physician and doctor.
Wow.
But pretty cool. I love it.
I like the idea that you could grow this in your backyard. Like here, it's not only is it native, but it thrives. So it's
and they get
got all
pretty
these
good
qualities.
size. They grow pretty wild, pretty quick. So they can tolerate full sun. They appreciate at least 6 to 8 hours of full sun a day. Rich, well-drained soil, although I've seen some research where they actually can be inundated in the winter with just standing water and survive that pretty well.
Whoa.
So they're pretty durable. I love that, right? And the fruit itself, very rich in nutrients. They contain flavonoids and rutin, which helps improve your immune system health, among many other things. It's pretty incredible, the health benefits of it. I think I got to dive even deeper into it.
Sure.
Listening to Katie talk about it and her talk about the other Katie, who's a farmer.
Yeah, Katie Renneker.
Yes, very cool. I love that these farmers are supplying a need and then using the land and organic farming to do it all to create what is essentially medicine. Pretty wonderful to hear about. It's incredible to consider how maybe our backyards could be a partial pharmacy for ourselves, right?
Wow.
And I think this might lead into a future episode where we may have to just jump into it and just discuss all the medicinal plants, not all, but some of them that we can grow in Zone 9B. And it'd be really cool to be like, all right, this is, certain plants, there's probably things that you're growing right now or planning on growing that may already be medicinal plants and you may not even know it yet.
I know. We focus on eating or the beauty, right? But these plants can be healing. That is a really special thing.
And there's nothing better, than when you're not feeling well, to have some comfort, to have something that restores your health and brings you back to balance. I'm blown away by it. It really gets me excited about, the garden and growing it does so many things. And I think in our interview with Katie, she kind of illustrates that a little bit, where she gets emotional and mental peace out there. She brings her daughter out into the garden, and then they can build a relationship. The daughter's building memories. They're building their immune system while they're in the garden. There's so many different ways to do it. I mean, she's talking about propagating sunflowers and selling those, and just like you said, the beauty to the food, to the nutrition, to the medicinal part of it, to the emotional and psychological and religious aspects of the garden and being out in nature. There's so many benefits. I can't even list them all. And it's kind of cool that there's one person like Katie's kind of touching on that a little bit.
Thank you, Katie's touching on all those things. Yeah. That is so cool, because sometimes we'll focus on one aspect at a time, but to really appreciate it all at once is a beautiful thing.
And I think growing, cultivating plants and being out in that garden, it's unique to every person. Each person kind of has their own relationship with plants in the garden. And it's just fun to explore.
Yeah. All right. Well, big thank you to Katie. Thank you so much for joining us and doing all the cool stuff that you're doing and sharing that with us. I hope to check in with you again later. And that's all for this week. So, Kevin, go ahead and take us out.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, it was so fun to bring it to you. And thank you so much for everyone coming in every week and tuning in. But hopefully, I want you all to let's all get fired up together. Let's get super fired up for gardening, for growing, for cultivating a paradise around ourselves that we can enjoy and appreciate, that other people can enjoy and appreciate, that will sustain our bellies, our souls, our spirit, and hopefully just bring us some just one more moment of joy. So with that in mind, garden friends, I wish you just the best week. Please get out in that garden, clean, sharpen, and sanitize those pruning tools, and get planting. It's going to be a great year. I hope you're all a big part of it.
Let's get after it.
Until next time, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And Austin,
never stop growing.
We'll see you next time, friends.